Hi, everyone. Welcome to Second Tuesday. And we certainly welcome our guest, Shannon Anderson. Shannon is a teacher. Um, my notes say that you teach third grade. Is that correct?
For the last 5 years, I taught third grade, yes.
Okay. All right, great. And she's a children's book author. She's a national presenter. And I guess for me, most importantly, I have to say she is a member of Kitty Lit Market, which is fantastic to have her with us. And today she's going to talk with us a little about help a writer, help a writer out. So welcome, Shannon, and we're anxious to hear what you have to say.
Well, thank you so much for having me and inviting me on here. I'm going to share my screen here. I have some resources to share out. So there we go. I was asked to talk about, how the children's literature community just really seems to be such a great slides and resources and things that I've experienced myself to show what a warm and supportive environment is. So first off, it does take a little bit of bravery and a lot of vulnerability to send out a story to an editor or an agent. I teach picture book writing courses and I mentor authors and do critiques all the time and feel like imposter syndrome is coming on and they don't feel like, they are ready enough to send something out or that it's good enough, or they see what other authors are doing and they don't feel like they measure up. And so, that's another thing that makes it so wonderful that we do support each other, because we definitely need that support. And, like I said, this is a community. It's a group of compassionate creators, and we like to help each other along our path to publication and beyond. One of the things I always say to people that I'm helping is, the way we learn the best, at least I feel like, is from someone who's just a little bit further along on the path. And so if we can find opportunities where we can, meet up with someone, or we can learn from them, we can attend a webinar, we can go to a class or a conference or a workshop, and we can learn from someone who's a little bit further than us, then that can help us on our path as well. So something that I often quote and that I believe in is what Zig Ziglar said, that you can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. And I really do believe that. And I hope to be able to show you lots of examples of that in this short presentation about how, when you do help someone, in the end, it ends up helping you as well. And that's not the reason that you do it. It just ends up working out that way. So here are some little cases that I can make my point. So for example, the first book that I ever wrote was because I have a daughter who has amblyopia, which means she has lazy eye. And I wanted to write a book to help other kids who have this condition, because my daughter had to wear an eye patch for 3 years, and she worked for 6 hours a day. And it was not something that we knew of many other kids who were doing that. And so I wanted to write a book to help other kids who have to wear an eye patch to get through that, to show how Maddie got through it with a sense of humor. And that ended up, by wanting to help these kids, that ended up being my first book publication. And I was able to continue to help kids in that situation with every August, it's Amblyopia Awareness Month, and I would donate 100 books every August to kids all over the world, through the parents I'd connected with on various groups that have kids just like Maddie who have eye issues. So that's just one example of where helping someone led to something great. Another thing that led to great opportunities for me was I started volunteering. And this is something I highly recommend, not just in SCBWI, but you can volunteer in, any organization that is something that you're passionate about. And because I wanted to learn more about writing, I volunteered at SCBWI events. I started being, the registration table at conferences. I was helping there. I was helping to sort out first pages and all the different things that need to be done. And when they would ask for a volunteer, I would say, sure, I'm going to be there anyway. I'd love to help. And eventually that led to becoming the regional advisor for SCBWI for 4 years. Now, the thing about that is also a volunteer position. So you may not realize that, but the people who are planning all of those conferences, like they're the ones doing all of the financial work. They're basically the president and the treasurer and the secretary, all of that wrapped up in one. And that is a volunteer position. So it is a lot of work. However, because I volunteered and helped in that way to further along other writers, I had the chance to get to attend many workshops and conferences. I had the chance to be the planner for those. So I was the one inviting agents and editors and authors that I felt like, were wonderful. I got to bring them in and have them present at our conferences. So that was a huge bonus that, I was able to get from volunteering and helping SCBWI. I also had the opportunity to get to go to the LA and New York conferences for a deep discount because I was there helping at those international conferences as well. Another example is speaking at events for free. So I started out that way. I started out doing lots of free events. A lot of them were teaching conferences and things. And now I get paid to speak and teach and coach because I did enough of those for no charge. Then people started to like what I had to say, and it was helping people. And so then they wanted to have me come to their schools or have me do professional development or a virtual visit of some kind or coach their teachers. So doing the free things and just helping out can lead to other opportunities. Here's another example. While I was working on my master's degree, I helped out a professor, and she really liked some of the lessons that I was turning in for my master's degree. And she asked if she could use it in her book, Differentiation That Works. And so she ended up putting several of my lessons in her book and gave me a little publishing credit in there. But that was my very first publication, kind of a nerdy one, I know. But, it was because I helped her that I got my first publication and didn't even, know that that's what she was going to do. And then, as a teacher, I've taught for 25 years. Of course, I like to think that I've helped a lot of kids along the way of my teaching career. And one of my dreams was to become a children's book author. And so I was able to write a grant for the Teacher Creativity Fellowship. And because of, the work I put in as a teacher, I was chosen to receive this. And the thing with this was it gave me the opportunity to pursue children's book writing. And I had the chance to take some classes and go to some big conferences and get my first laptop computer. And so that was something that really helped me a lot and got me started with learning about writing. And then from there, I started learning and I never stopped. I'm still to this day learning about writing for kids. And so, that's just one more thing that, because I worked hard in teaching, I was able to get that grant to be able to help me in my writing. Now, another example of helping others is this is kind of a personal example with my own family, but there was a year, many years ago, that I was feeling like it was when my girls were young, and I was feeling like we were kind of just going through the motions. We were so busy that we were not really thinking of others as much. We were just kind of thinking of our own things and what we needed to get done and what the day was going to bring to us versus what we could bring to the day and what we could do to help others. And so on the far left there, you can see there's this composition notebook. And that's what I did. I bought a composition notebook and I wrote on it, Deed Diary. And that became this family experiment that we did, where every day we tried to seek out something we could do for others. And every evening at dinner, we would write down something that we did to help others. So every night at dinner, I'd get that Deed Diary out, and I had the date written down, and me, Emily, Madison, and we would have this great conversation about what we did to help others during that day. It was such a great experience for us that I wanted to share that with others, because maybe that could help other families to find some joy and to find a way to be more selfless. And so lo and behold, I sent it to Chicken Soup for the Soul, Find Your Happiness, and they took it and they published it in that book. But then a couple of years later, they asked if they could republish it into Chicken Soup for the Soul, Raising Great Kids. And then a couple years later, Amy Newmark, the editor who took over for Jack Canfield, contacted me and said she was compiling her top 100 stories of happiness and asked if she could include it in that one. And I even, because of that, got to meet her. She invited the authors of that particular book to Chicago to dinner, and I got to have dinner with her, and it was wonderful. Well, then, because of all of that, I started a D2Day Facebook group where, now I interact with over 1,000 people on there where we're just sharing, things that are joyful, blessings that have occurred, and ways that people are helping each other out. And that grew and grew. And one day I went to a conference and mentioned, this whole experience, and an editor asked me, would you be willing to write your own book on Adidas, like not just be a part of an anthology, but would you write your own book and be able to share the ripple effects that happen because of that? And so that's why this year, that book on the far right, Adidas, came out. And that all just started from, doing a bunch of good deeds, trying to spread kindness with my own family led to all of these other opportunities. So volunteering at gifted conferences was a way I got one of my other books. So I used to speak at gifted conferences. I was, as Diane mentioned, the gifted coordinator for my school for many years, 12 years, I believe. And so I would go to lots of gifted conferences. And since I was going to be there, I always volunteered, never got paid for any of them, always volunteered to speak at them. If there were ideas that I felt like I could share either on social and emotional topics, or of course, since I love writing, I would volunteer to teach, creative writing strategies that these teachers could use in their classrooms with gifted writers, all kinds of things like that. And it just so happened that while I was volunteering at a gifted conference at the expo, I went to a booth where, there were all of these books on social and emotional topics that just spoke to me. And I thought, I've written this one book about a perfectionist little girl. So I went up to the lady at the booth and I just asked her, I said, I have this book that I wrote that's about a little perfectionist. And man, it just really fits with all of these other books, all these other social emotional topics. It just, I would really love to submit my manuscript. Do you know who I could send it to? Could you possibly give me the name of the acquisitions editor so I could, personalize my cover letter? And lo and behold, guess what? I was talking to the acquisitions editor. And so that ended up leading to her telling me that and asking me to submit the story. And that became Penelope Perfect. Well, Penelope Perfect did really well. And then the next thing I know, I asked them if they would like a book that's kind of the opposite, about an underachiever who is, very gifted in music and art, but academically is not achieving it to his potential. And that became Coast and Casey at that same publisher. And then I started, researching and learning more about growth mindset. And that same publisher took my book, Why is for Yet, A Growth Mindset Alphabet, which then led to, they said, well, that is a picture book for younger kids. What if we did a launch of that and a middle grade on growth mindset so that we can kind of span our whole kid audience? Would you be willing to write that? And so that's what led to that book. So it was a simultaneous launch of the two of those books, both, again, with that same publisher, that all started because I spoke to a lady at a gifted conference I was volunteering at. And I also volunteered on the Indiana State Literacy Association board. So I was a board member. But before that, I had volunteered as a local council member, ended up being the secretary for years. And then I was asked to be the president for years. And then I was asked to be on the state board. And so I did that and went to a lot of the conferences. As a matter of fact, the first conference I ever spoke at was one of the Indiana State Literacy conferences. And I remember being terrified, and I was only doing it because they asked me to. It wasn't this eager, feeling of I want to share my ideas. I was very nervous about that, but I'm glad that I did, because then that broke me of my fears, because I saw in that session, it was a room full of people, and the teachers were so appreciative for the ideas I shared. And I had no idea that people would care about things I'm doing in my classroom and how it might be helpful. And so from there, I was hooked, because then those teachers were getting a hold of me and asking me questions. And that led to, the Indiana State Literacy Association asking me to present more. And then two of my biggest presentations, Be an Amazing Writing Teacher and Go the Extra Smile, I ended up being asked by one of the vendors at another conference. They had sat in on my sessions, and they asked if I wanted to make those sessions into a resource book where teachers could use those, maybe after they've heard the presentation, or if they can't hear the presentation, they could get the ideas from the book. And so that's what led to that. And, all of my work with the social and emotional issues, growth mindset and perfectionism and underachievement made me want to explore other ways that I can help kids with some of these issues. So that's when I had the idea to write a book about shyness or social anxiety. And this one I ended up submitting to the American Psychological Association, the APA. Their publishing branch is Imagination Press. And so I ended up submitting to them, and they wanted to publish this book that I wanted to get out in the world to help kids with social anxiety. And so, I hope that you're seeing, like, time after time after time, when you're trying to help someone with something, how it ends up becoming such a great opportunity. And by the way, Too Shy to Say Hi's birthday is today. Today is the actual release date. So that's pretty exciting too. So back to my, what my real life was before I started writing anything was just all teaching, and one of my passions is teaching kids about writing. And so that ended up leading to doing all of these really fun writing projects with kids. And one of my projects in particular is one where I lead the kids through the whole publication process. And then I send off their story to this company called Student Treasures, and they make their story into a hardcover book for them. Well, then I send off their illustration to be made into a stuffed animal. And then I also buy a white plain dress from Amazon, and I let them draw their main character on my dress as well. And it just became this really cool project where my kids, when the books and the stuffed animals came in, we'd have a publication party. I'd wear the dress. I had a big video that I would make every year of the reveal, like when they got to reach into the box and see their stuffed animal for the first time. Well, that ended up going viral. And then that's what ended up having the Today Show call, and then Good Morning America. And, like all of these different TV shows and big media were contacting me because they saw the video go wild of just this writing, project that I did with my students that I absolutely love doing. And it just led to that. So of course that, leads to other opportunities to speak and things like that. And then I started really helping a lot of writers. As people were starting to see more books come out, they were asking me questions like, oh, so how do I get a book published? I would really like to write a book too, or I've written one and I don't know what to do next. And it got to the point where I was helping so many writers that I wasn't getting any of my own writing done. And so I finally got to a point where I had people asking me, and I would say, I'm so sorry, I'm very busy. If I can fit it in, I will. Well, that turned into people saying, well, could I, purchase a mentoring hour or something like that? And that's when I started thinking, how could I help a lot of people at once and not have to take a lot of time? And that's when I came up with the idea to have a picture book boot camp, because I was presenting at writing conferences, but some of the things that people were wanting were for very beginner writers. And so I decided to create some picture book boot camp. So I have one that's just like the basics of writing the book in the first place. And then I have others that are like your next steps for your story. And so that's, once you have a polished manuscript, how do you submit it? What's a cover letter? What's a query letter? Do I need an agent? Do I need an editor? How do I do all of those things and do the marketing with it? And how do you do author visits and book launch parties and all the platform building? And so I started teaching it in groups of people. My first one was in person. And then, of course, with the pandemic, they switched to all virtual. But I can't tell you how much I love teaching these classes, and I've been able to keep in touch with these people. And anytime I hear good news, I'm supporting them and promoting them on my social media. And I've just had a ball being able to do this. And again, that's just because I wanted to help as many writers as I could. So I guess what you need to think about is if you are coming into the writing industry or you're new into it and maybe you just have your first book out, think about what do you want to do most? Because for me, there were just so many things I had to start narrowing down. And that's why I'm on sabbatical leave this year, because with teaching full time and with trying to write, and I had several books come out in 1 year, which is that's pretty rare for that to happen, but it just so happened that this year I had several books come out at the same time. And so I decided to narrow down what is it that I want to do. And I decided, well, to figure that out, I'm going to need to take a year off from teaching to explore and see. And one of my favorite things to do is author visits. You can see me doing some of those right there. But I wanted to figure out, I know I want to help young writers, meaning kids. I want to do the author visits. I want to teach them, writing things. So I teach online and I do author visits, but then I also love teaching adults. And so I'm doing that too. And through the whole thing, I also love writing books and getting books out there. So I'm continuing to work on that as well. So thinking about what do you want to do and how can you get there? There are so many resources out there from other people that want to help writers, just like me, just like, Diane, all of these different resources. So I'm going to try to share quickly some of these. So of course, SCBWI, the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, that was the first organization that I joined. And, Publishers Weekly is a resource as far as, I subscribe online, but I used to get the hard copy magazine of it to learn about the industry. Highlights Foundation, if you've never been to one of their workshops, they are amazing. You get to stay in a cabin and you get to learn up at the big barn and the food is amazing. Tara Lazar, if you haven't heard of her, she does Story Storm and other things for writers to help them out. And those are no cost, but she has other resources on her blog and her website that you can go to. Harold Underdown is another good resource. Rate Your Story is another one that has all kinds of, there's a newsletter and you can find out, how your story rates. They have different submission periods that you can send in your story. And it's limited feedback if you're on the free version, but if you want to be a member, I believe you can get more feedback. There are places like the Writing Barn and the Loft that are similar to Highlights Foundation. There are actual courses, like long-term courses like Storyteller Academy or the Children's Book Academy. Children's Book Insider is something I belong to. They have different interviews from time to time and resources that they send out. Of course, Kitty Lit Market. And Diane is now doing these second Tuesdays. So again, you can learn from people along their way of their path to publication, or if they're already, or how they can help you in some way. Julie Headland's another great one. She does the 12 by 12 Platinum Literary Services. This is an author friend of a couple author friends of mine had started that, and they offer all kinds of services as far as editing, ghostwriting, and contract work, all kinds of things, that you might have questions on. So again, through the Children's Book Insider, they do webinars, they do different kidlit distancing socials. The SCBWI offers webinars, some free and some for a very low fee. Like if you're a member, it might be $10 or $15, those types of things. So take advantage, really when you join some of these things, make sure that you're taking part in the webinars, make sure you're looking at what workshops they offer. And even if, especially now that we're virtual, you can find things in other regions because now location doesn't matter. It's all digital. So right now, while it's still digital, you should take advantage of being able to, see what's available in other states and even other countries. Here are some more resources. Check out other authors. So seriously, go on Josh Funk's books and see what he has to say about rhyming, because he has a lot to say about that. Go to Darcy Pattison. She has wonderful resources. She is someone who has figured out not only the traditional market, but also self-publishing. Like, she's a whiz at all of that. Alexis O'Neill, if you want to know anything about author visits, she's your go-to. She's a wonderful lady, has some great books out. One of her books is becoming a musical right now, actually. Deb Gonzalez is amazing. She's very sweet, and she also is a Pinterest queen, and she does teacher guides for books. So if you have a book and you want a teacher guide made, she will make those for you. I just put my little resources tab there. You can look. You're welcome to look on my website. But the other thing is, most authors do have a website. So if you can get to their website and you're wondering how to do yours, I mean, my goodness, look at what others are doing and see, which tabs are they using and what information are they putting on each tab. That's something free that you can do that is so helpful. And if they have a newsletter, sign up for it. You'll be able to see what to include in your newsletter. Or if it's anything, like my newsletter that I do, I just send it out the first Friday of every month, but it truly is a collection of things that I know about from that month, like workshops that are coming up, or podcasts that I newly subscribed to that I really love, or another resource that I found, or another website of another author that I love, things like that. And so if you're signing up for other newsletters, you're not only learning about how to do the newsletters and seeing what others are doing on those, but you're also getting their resources. They're sharing great information. So take advantage of those. So if you help other writers, you can do this by doing so many things. Like, for example, buy their books. I mean, seriously, if you buy someone's book, you have no idea how far that ripple effect can go. Buying their book helps them out in a big way, of course, but then that also allows you to write a review for them, which also is super helpful. You can post and share. So these are some pictures of me sharing books of people that I've mentored. And that, anytime someone does that for me, I can't tell you how big my heart feels that someone took the time to do that. Recommending them. So not even just recently, someone that I mentored for doing author visits is a professional coach. And so I'm recommending her for that. I have someone else that I've mentored that has self-published books. And so when someone asks me questions about that, I recommend her because she knows more about self-publishing than I do. Another thing you can do is if someone asks you to take part in an anthology, maybe you're not going to get paid anything, but you're helping them with their book. Like right now, I'm part of a book, anthology book for a fellow author that I met, on social media. And another example is this book here called Writing and Selling Children's Books. So I was asked by Kyle Young and Michelle Metlock Adams to be a part of their book. So my chapter in that book is on author visits. Now, I didn't get paid to do that or anything. I'm helping them with their book, and they're going to be the ones that earn all the royalties. But as I'm helping them, I'm also helping other authors that might need to know about author visits, but it also shows that I know how to do that. I know how to do author visits. And so maybe, who knows, someone might contact me to do an author visit or have me mentor them, like I've had others mentor. I've mentored on how to do author visits. So you just never know when you help someone the opportunities that may lead to. This picture on the left where it says new releases by Indiana authors. So I live in Indiana, and I am now the PAL person for Indiana SCBWI. I'm helping to promote people that have been published and listed. So in other words, through traditional publishing. And so a couple of times now, I have asked any Indiana authors who have new releases coming out to send me a photo of them holding their book, and I make a little video of that. And then we all can share it together on all of our social media to just announce a lot of books. It didn't take me that much time, and everyone was so appreciative. And I was able to put my book, my new book release in there as well. So think of ways that, you could promote your book, but you could also help a lot of other people do the same thing. And then don't forget to ask for help too. We can't always have everyone read our minds. And some people truly do not know. I mean, like even my own mom does not understand what it means to write a book review, things like that. You sometimes do need to ask. And people are usually happy to do it, especially if you've helped and promoted them along the way. So it could be another author that you're asking for help, or it could be someone like in this picture here, this lady holding my Too Shy to Say Hi book, this is a lady who is now a wonderful kindergarten teacher who I had as a student teacher years ago. So I was her supervising teacher. And now all these years later, she is teaching kindergarten somewhere in another city. But I asked, I put out a call for anyone who wants to be on my book launch team. And she jumped right on board, and she's been able to share it on her social media. And that's been helpful for me. So if you can ask people, are you willing to be on my book launch team? And if you have, just a few little asks and you're willing to provide them a free copy of the book or some other way of thanking them, then they're usually happy to do that. But they have to know to do that. So don't forget to ask. And of course, don't forget to thank them when they do help you. So I'm going to end with my motto. That's much like the Zig Ziglar quote, like if you help enough other people to success, you will see success. But my other big one is Maya Angelou's, when you get, give, and when you learn, teach. And I truly do believe that with my whole heart. And I think part of that is the natural teacher in me. I've been a teacher for most of my life. And I've always felt like when I learn something, I can't wait to teach it to someone else. And when I get something, I want to be able to give it to someone else in some way or form. And so that's how I feel the Kidlit community is. I really, truly feel like we are a compassionate, creative group of people that do help each other out. And we just have to remember, to sometimes ask for the help when we need it. And we need to remember to help anytime that we can. So I hope that this was helpful for you. And if you ever need any assistance, my website's shannonisteaching.com. You're welcome to poke around in there and see, I am not by any means the expert on websites, but you're welcome to poke around and see how I've set mine up. I'd love to have you connect with me on social media. I know I've learned so much from other people I've connected with, just seeing things that they're posting and trying and doing. I do have a newsletter if you want to sign up for it. It is all of the things that I collect that I think are helpful for teachers and for writers both. And I mentor. So I mentor people on setting up their website. I mentor them on how to do author visits, how to start writing your first book, how to market, how to work on your platform. Anything that you might need that I'm a little bit further along the path, I'm happy to help. And as I said, I do offer workshops, I do professional critiques. So any way that I'm able to help out, I'm happy to do that because I know for sure that I have been helped with all of the newsletters I've subscribed to, people I've connected with on social media, and the workshops that I have attended and so forth. So I hope that in a big nutshell, helps you to see that, we can help each other out, and it's for the benefit of all of us because we all, in the end, want to produce good books that make a difference for kids. And if we can do that together, then it's just so much more enjoyable and fulfilling.
Well, thank you so much, Shannon. That was just fabulous. I love all the little takeaways that were in there for all of us. I plan to pick up on a few of those myself. Thank you so much. Well, you did a fantastic job, my dear. Thank you so very much for being our guest today on Second Tuesday. We certainly appreciate it. And we look forward to having you come back again sometime and talk about one of those other fabulous things that you're so good at. And I just want to emphasize that I love your idea of sharing. Would you repeat your Maya Angelou quote once again for us?
Yes. When you get, give, and when you learn, teach.
That is just beautiful, isn't it?
It really is.
Well, Gwen, we're going to wrap it up today. And thank you again, Shannon, for appearing with us. And thank you for all your very good advice. And we'll have you back again real soon. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for stopping in for Second Tuesday. Next month, we have Kevin Lovegren, another children's author, and he's going to talk to us about self-publishing. So I hope you'll join us again in a month. Thanks again, Shannon. Talk to you soon. Bye now.
Bye-bye.